What is happening, you beautiful bastards? Welcome back to another week. This week's guest is Carlos Valencia. Carlos is a comedian who's been, I think he's opened for Bert Kreischer and a couple other big guys. But we get to see the other side of, starting up in comedy and maybe the not so advertised side of entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Carlos, I expected more jokes, I guess. And we definitely got jokes on this episode. But as you'll find out in just a minute here, there's actually a pretty serious side. Because, you think about comedians, you hear jokes, you watch funny movies, and that's it. But there's a big business side to that. You're not just going out there telling jokes, and that's the end of your hard work. You have to do the whole business side. You're really running a business, and you're the product.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that he has to worry about, like, if he goes somewhere and he pisses off the wrong people, he'll never get a gig there again.
Yeah, and it makes sense. But so we go into detail on, like, how do you judge your crowd, and do you tell the same set everywhere, or, as Grizz just alluded to, he has to be kind of careful and pick what jokes he's telling, and sometimes he gets it wrong, just like every comedian.
Yes, he does.
But take a listen. Let us know what you think at the end. And while we're on that topic of interacting, I wanted to remind you guys that if you get some value out of this, if you find it entertaining, go click that subscribe button on YouTube and go check out our Patreon. Grizz, where is our YouTube and our Patreon?
YouTube, if you go to our link tree, you can find all of it. But YouTube, type in Beautiful Bastards Podcast will come up. We'll be the first ones there. Patreon should be the same thing. You can get the links off of Facebook as well as YouTube. Patreon, though, go check it out, guys. That's got a good one on what it's like to be an American in a Chinese prison.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story. So we want you guys to go listen to that and become some patrons. And with that, let's go talk to Carlos.
What is happening, you beautiful bastards? And I'm going to start off the conversation with it. Jerry looks like the villain from Die Hard 3.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen that. Wasn't that Timothy Oliphant?
No.
Even know.
I don't even know this guy's name, but he's been in a lot of different stuff.
Wait, which one?
3.
I can't remember. It's been too long.
It's not Hans Gruber. What was
it? It's the other Gruber.
Yeah, whatever the
MacGruber?
Not even MacGruber.
No, is it MacGruber?
Yeah, whoever the second Gruber is, the not Hans Gruber.
I don't know if I look it up right now, my internet might die.
It's been. I remember the first one was in the building. The second one was in an airport, and then the third one
was in New York.
No, yeah, New York City. Like they were robbing a bank or some shit.
Yeah, and he had the horrible dye job for his hair.
Yeah. So which one was Timothy Oliphant? 4? I don't know how many fucking.
I don't know, man.
I don't even know.
All these movies have so many sequels, I can't keep track anymore. I barely even remember 3.
Well, if the guy wasn't so hard to die, then we wouldn't need all these sequels. You know what I mean?
I would say, what are they up to? 7?
I don't know. I can't keep track of this shit. I like the first 2, and I guess the other ones were all right. I'm not gonna.
Someone brought it up the other day that apparently Bruce Willis is just putting out shit lately.
I mean, I haven't kept up with his career, but the fact that I can't even mention you a single.
That's my point. After what was it, the whole 9 yards, it just went to shit.
I actually just read an article about him, and his view now is basically, I don't give a fuck, give me money, and he'll take whatever.
Yeah, he's kind of following, I guess, that Nicolas Cage program.
Yeah, but the difference is Nicolas Cage is a national treasure, and he isn't.
Oh, that is true.
He's just an asshole.
Yeah, that's a good point, man.
He may be a national treasure, but I'm pretty sure he lost his mind somewhere along the way.
Nick Cage never had one. He's always been crazy.
But he lost it more so than not having one. It's just gone. Just completely.
Just nothing left.
The opposite, reverse.
Yeah, but that's what I love about him. He's crazy all the time, and he always just plays himself. It doesn't get better than that. I think that the calmest he's ever been was National Treasure.
Yeah, I guess so.
I haven't seen a Nicolas Cage movie I never even saw Face Off.
Really?
Face Off was a rough one, man.
Why? You don't even. I love that movie. What's rough about it?
That was like at the height of the 90s when they were just doing whatever the fuck they wanted in movies. Like,
it was around those Air Force One and what other movies came out around that time. There were several like that.
Yeah, there was a bunch.
That was like the Rock.
Con Air, that sort of shit.
Yeah, that was when The Rock was in like Scorpion King. Also an awful movie.
Oh, actually, Brendan Fraser's making a comeback.
Is he?
Yeah, I didn't say Brendan Fraser was crap. He's amazing.
What is he supposed to be in?
He's playing a villain in some TV show. I don't know. I gotta double check that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds like he's doing good.
He's making a comeback.
All right.
Good for him, man.
Yeah, sure.
So how many years you been in the comedy business?
16. There's 16 this year. Yeah.
Where'd you start off?
I don't know. I mean, that's 16 years is when I started. I really wasn't in the business at that point. I probably had no business doing stand-up when I started. I didn't really get on the road. Like, I didn't become a full-time comic till probably 2008, 9. So maybe then I would say 12
that
years.
was a good time to be in comedy, though.
It was all right. Not necessarily for being a road comic, because that's when fucking gas prices were shooting up to like $3, $3.50, $4 and shit. It wasn't fun as far as just fucking paying for gas.
What town did you start in?
Charlotte, North Carolina. I started because that's just where I was living, and then I moved to
a comedy town. I don't even know.
Nah, not really. It's got like there's one comedy club, and it closed like a year after I started doing stand up. So there really wasn't much.
So you were that bad when you started out that you closed it?
Yeah, I closed it down. So I achieved my goal from the get go. Everything's just been gravy for the last 14 years. But they didn't have a club, and so I moved to Atlanta, and then I lived in New York City for a little bit, and then I kind of just went on the road, and then COVID happened, so I ended up back in Charlotte.
Oh, no kidding, huh? What are you working on now?
Mostly I've been doing a podcast. That's basically what kept me busy the whole COVID years, because I couldn't tour and shit. So I've been doing a podcast, and then now that stuff's starting to reopen, I'm doing a few more road shows, but I'm still not like full time like I was before that.
I was gonna say I hope that now that things are opening up, comedy blows up again. But I have a feeling like Jerry and I were just talking about with the whole Dave Chappelle thing. It's to me that what he said, I'm not going to go into it, but comedy's got to be the one thing where there's almost no real censorship, so they can do what they need to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I stand on it. I just posted like last Thursday, because I've been kind of avoiding the whole thing, not because it's just because I've heard it. It's like every time he puts a special out, there's people angry, and then it blows over, and then he does another special 2 years later. You know what I mean?
Well, that was the thing we were talking about, is like, if you look at all these things where people blow up in controversy, right? So you have the immediate backlash. Everyone's all in it. Well, not everyone. Squeaky wheels in an outcry. And then Netflix doesn't take it down. They just leave it up. And a month later, it's still up and it's still doing good. So part of me wonders if they're just doing this for free PR.
I mean, yeah, it makes you wonder. But honestly, it's what you just described. It'll be a controversy for a few months, and then at the end of the day, nobody dies, and Chappelle's still a millionaire. So it's like, I don't. That's why basically I just didn't have an opinion on it. But then last week I posted on my Facebook. I was like, can somebody just like drop me a direct quote of whatever was the most appalling thing that he said in that special? Just a quote. Not like your interpretation of like, this is how he hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like, give me a
like
quote.
The actual words. Yeah,
exactly.
I think the thing they were upset about the most in that was he said he was Team Turf,
right?
Which is the same thing Rowling said.
That's the thing that's the only one, because other people were like, somebody actually and they got angry with me, and it's a person that I know in person. Like it wasn't just random. And they were mad at me because I posted that up, and then they were like, well, at one point he did the quote where and I'm not sure it's exactly these words, but it's something like, when he's talking. Have you guys seen it? Have you guys seen the special?
No.
I haven't yet. Nope.
Okay.
I read what he said, but
there's a line there where he's talking to the daughter of his trans friend who had died. Yeah. And he says something like, you your father was the greatest woman I've ever met, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is a very clever turn of phrase and also kind of touching. But somebody submitted this as one of the most appalling things that Chappelle said during that special, because they interpreted it as they were misgendering them, and they took it like that was like he was purposely trying to hurt somebody. I was like, no, first of all, it's a clever turn of phrase, whichever way you put it, doing that contrast between your father was the greatest woman, that alone is artistically valid. And second of all, if anything, he said that with love. Like he was telling the daughter, this is how much I thought about your mom, father, woman, man, that it didn't even it crossed the boundary of whatever gender that person was. They just appreciated them for who they were.
The other thing is he's taken her in, right?
Yeah.
Say that again.
He took in the daughter of the of his friend who was trans. Like,
did he? I see. I didn't even know. Like, I don't know the whole story. And that's the other part. Is like, I'm not like a Chappelle expert or like diehard or anything. I liked him in the '90s a lot. Like, I've been following his career for a long time. So I wasn't even taking it from the perspective that like, do you think he's a funny or not, or whether the special, or whether he's had better specials or whatever, because people are genuinely like mad or acting like they're very offended about this this special. And it's not just because he's not as funny as he used to be. I mean, fuck, man, like every other special you see from somebody that's been around for 15 years is not going to be as good as something that they did before.
No,
you know what I think is going on with this one. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I've watched his last few specials, and his new thing in most recent years is he'll be telling his jokes, and they're pretty okay, but he's been around for a long time, so he's not as funny as he used to be.
Right.
He goes into these serious rants in between. And that puts a lot of things in this weird place where people are like, I don't know if that's a joke or not. And then on top of that, social media gets mad at everything. And as you can see, this is all still up. People are still watching it. The bulk of society doesn't really care about what he said that much.
That's exactly right. It's like going back to that turf thing. Yeah. I guarantee you 99% of the population of America has never either heard that word, or even if they have no idea. They're going to think you're talking about like AstroTurf or some shit like that,
The first time I heard it was when he said it.
See, and I'd seen that term on Twitter every now and again.
Yeah.
So he did say that. That's a direct quote, pretty much. I'm Team Turf. But I don't, and again, I think then after you hear that, then you have to see the whole bit. Because that's, there's going to be more context to it. It's not like some comic is going to go up there and be like, I'm Team Nazi. You guys figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like, no, there's going to be a bit that follows whatever, when you say something that controversial. And then a couple of people did post clips, and the things that he said after he said that were pretty funny. Like, I thought they were funny jokes. It was something, I don't know exactly how it went, but it was something like, trans women that get a vagina, you can't have kids with that vagina. So it's not like a real vagina. It's like an impossible vagina, or the incredible vagina, doing the comparison with the burger.
Impossible Burger. Yeah.
Impossible Burger, that. So I think he was just setting himself up for that, for those jokes. But then a lot of people are like, oh no, he might as well have just said I'm a fascist or something like that without any context.
0 to 100 immediately.
Right. Yes, exactly. And again, it's a not a comment. Even if do you guys know what it stands for?
What, turf?
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. I haven't looked it up yet.
It's an acronym, and it stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. And people are like, well, how could you not know what that means? I'm like, I still don't know what that means. Trans exclusionary, what? The people act like you're supposed to be an expert on these very esoteric terms that they come up with.
To me, I hope, like, I don't want us to go down that route with comedy, because comedy can be a pretty dark place, and it needs to be at times. And if we're gonna censor the hell out of comedy, it's all done.
You can't. I always side with the comic as far as when it comes to material or like what they should or shouldn't be able to talk about. Because it's a slippery slope when you start saying, okay, you can't talk about this. Well, then the next thing is going to be you can't talk about it, and then it just grows from there. And I think the comedian should have the liberty to to say whatever. I put this in one of my old albums, but I still believe it. It's like the problem in comedy is not comics that tell too many rape jokes. It's rapists that tell too many clean jokes. Like Bill Cosby. Like nobody would have ever figured Cosby to be controversial ever in his career because he told clean jokes. But meanwhile, he was raping women. Yeah. So I'd rather have comedians have the liberty to talk and say anything that they want, rather than just be nice and clean and then actually be doing evil shit in the background in your real life.
Yeah, comedy is supposed to satirize real life. That's what it's for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. Even when a comedian, like again with that turf thing, even when a comedian says something like outrageous like that, it's oftentimes it's to mock. Oh, here's the other one. Here's the other one that the other quote that people put out there that it is pretty edgy and offensive, but I still think it's still a joke. He said something about he got into a fight with a gay guy because the gay guy was like trying to start a fight with him. So Chappelle's like, so I punched him right in the AIDS. So I'm like, that is shocking, or like, and sometimes that's the value of the joke, or I mean, the intention of the joke is like, let me just say the most ignorant thing I can say right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but that's
I just chuckled in my head right there.
Yeah, but that's the joke. So it's like, but then if you already come to a special or to see a comic with an agenda and a bias in your mind, then you're going to jump at anything that you can.
Exactly. So it's almost like they want to be offended with it, right?
Basically they would be disappointed if they weren't offended.
To me, there's so many, when I look at so many things that offend people, it's because it's something they know to be true that they don't like being true, right?
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes
it's in your face.
And sometimes I forget who I heard talk about this, saying something like, because a lot of like laughter is very involuntary. If it's good if it's genuine laughter, you didn't even intend to laugh, but you couldn't help it. Right. And I think sometimes that might be what scares these people that are always offended, is that they might end up laughing at something that they think themselves are not supposed to laugh. There's gonna be an involuntary reaction where this comic might make me realize that I'm not the angel that I think I am.
Yeah, and to me, you should be able to laugh at everything, whether or not you believe something is right, wrong, or otherwise. Like, listen, we're not transphobe, we're not homophobe, we're not racist,
right? But
you can still laugh at that stuff, and they see that as you're giving it fuel to the fire, you're empowering someone. It's right? Like, no, because if Chappelle all of a sudden got off stage and he's not on stage, he's not doing a bit or anything, and he just started ripping the shit out of transgender people, that's a little different, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, we'd all sit there and be like, oh, okay, you've gone crazy, like you've gone too far, like you're doing what you shouldn't be doing. But on stage, like, everything should be open.
Yeah, everything is open.
We make Hitler jokes, like, come on, that shit's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you 100%. I think you should be allowed to talk, and at worst, if the joke doesn't get a laugh, then all it was a bad joke. Somebody, God forbid, somebody tried to make somebody laugh. That was and as long as the intention is just to make people laugh, entertain, then just do it. At worst, you just told a bad joke.
Yeah, when you're talking about jokes that are super controversial like this one, they're just pointing out the absurdity of a situation. Whether it's, in this case, in my opinion, based on what I've been hearing, he was being sarcastic about turf. And then you talk about something like blackface in what's the movie, Grizz? Tropic Thunder.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can never make Tropic Thunder nowadays, and that movie.
The whole point of him wearing blackface was to point out the absurdity of people wearing blackface.
Absolutely.
So that was the point of the comedy. It was amazing, bringing to light how absurd that situation is.
Yeah, sometimes, that's the only way to bring that forth, is by sometimes just hitting the people in the face with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and the joke is not that I actually believe this; it's just to look at how ridiculous this is.
Yeah. And because, like, in the 20s through like the 60s, people were in blackface in movies all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they literally would be the black actor.
Yeah, they didn't want to hire a black actor. Yeah.
Right. So he was basically making fun of that situation, and that caught a lot of heat too, but not nearly as much as it would now.
No, and I think I'd like to believe that movie was released exactly when it needed to be released. Like today, that'd be a little rough.
I mean, but the thing is, like, even when I mean, it definitely is worse now, and I even hesitate to say that because I don't want to sound like the old cunt that's like, back in my day, you know, blah. But even when I started, it wasn't as bad as it is now. But there was some hint of that, like it was coming, and also already, I mean, by the time I started, a lot of the edgier comics had really not been around for a minute. Like Sam Kinison had died for a while, and same Bill Hicks. And then, you know, there was a period where there was a time where people liked edgier shit like that. But then when I started, it was more towards the cleaner side. And I didn't know, I thought it was going to get worse, but not like this, really.
I think the people who like it are out there. It's just, they're worried about someone being like, hey, why are you into that? You know what I mean?
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. The audience definitely is out there. It's just harder to reach them if you do more controversial material if you're not famous, because you're going to have a harder time with any kind of network or anybody trying to put you on TV.
So it's a big storm to weather. That's the other thing I feel like right now with comedy is, 30 years ago, you could have your one scene, your one skit, whatever you want to call it, your one showcase bit, and you could run that all over the country. Now you're going to do that. They're going to make an actual Netflix special about it, and then everyone's going to see that. And now you got to come up with new shit again. Like, I'm pretty sure Dane Cook had the same shit for how long?
Before he got famous.
Yeah.
But I will say though, I mean, you're right. Then you're gonna have to come up with a whole other hour. But that's a good problem to have, though. You know what I mean?
It's absolutely a good problem. Yeah, I love it.
The problem, though, that because it's, at least with Netflix for a minute there, it seemed like everybody was getting a special. Not me, but everybody. Yep. So they were. So
what the fuck, man?
what you risk with that, though, is that okay, you're getting comics that maybe aren't really ready to be doing an hour, all right? Or if they do have an hour, then that's their hour, like you said, and now they're famous, so they got to go on the road. And I'm like, well, I got nothing else. So now if you go see them on the road, you're gonna see them do the same hour, or you're gonna see like very lame, untested new material sort of thing.
There was some dude, I think in the 80s or 90s, he did the whole robot thing. We've all seen the clips.
I don't know.
It was all computer related and robot. It's hilarious, but it's literally 5 minutes and that's all he has.
Oh, really?
He never came up with new material. And
well, back then they didn't have to, because they could tour the whole country and people had no idea who they were walking in, because it takes so long for information to move back then.
So that's another thing, and you still see that to this day. Road comics that have just been on the road forever, and they've been doing the same hour since God knows when.
The road.
Yeah, and because they're not famous, then they'll do, even if they do the same city in the same year, it's going to be a different audience, because they're not really coming to see them specifically. They're coming to see just whoever the comic is there that weekend, or that middle of the week night, like that. And so there's some people there that it's like, I heard Patton Oswalt said a long time that like some comics say they've been doing comedy for 20 years, but really they did comedy for 10 years, and then they've been doing the same set for the last 10.
Yeah,
because they just some comics just get like, here's my hour, all right, I'm done, this is all I need to ever do. I just get way too bored with my material. I can't even imagine.
Oh, dude, I know I couldn't do it. I would do what's it called, audience work? What is it?
Crowd work.
Just shit on the audience. That's all I do.
That was my biggest fear when I started comedy. I was like, I just wrote jokes. Like Mitch Hedberg was my dude. Like, that was my idol when I started out, and I was emulating him a lot. I was actually like almost ripping off his cadence and his voice. I was telling my jokes, but I was telling them in his. He's got a very
he had a
voice.
very iconic one.
Exactly. So when I started, I just had my jokes, and then people. Inevitably people are gonna mouth off. I mean, it's just a reality that they're gonna, even if they're not being mean, it still interrupts whatever your train of thought was, or whatever your joke bit that you were doing. So I had to learn to like talk to these people, and I hated it. I was just like, I didn't get into stand up to talk to people, man. I just want to tell my jokes, and then you listen, and hopefully you laugh.
That's a big part of it, though.
but it's huge. But I had this, I had this, maybe just because I sucked at it, I had this idealistic thing where I'm like, no, I talk and you listen, and that's it.
They shut that down quick.
I'm not here to talk to you, but no, you just, it's a reality of life. Yeah, in a perfect world, nobody would yell at you or interrupt you, but no, the reality is you're gonna have to deal with people. But it took me probably fucking 9-10 years before I was fully comfortable dealing with people and drunks and hecklers and shit.
Oh, I bet.
Well, how about when you first started out and you sucked? How long did you feel like you sucked before you went on stage one day and walked off and you were like, yeah, I did that right?
I'll let you know when it happens. Come on. Honestly, for the first like 6 months, it was going so bad that I'm like, maybe this is not something I should be doing. But then some of the local comics that were also kind of starting out around the same time, they were nice. They were like, they would want me to go up, because sometimes I would go to the open mic and chicken out and just not even sign up. Like I would just sit there and freeze and watch the show.
I imagine that's a lot of people though.
Yeah, probably.
It's half the battle though. You showed up.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like baby steps sort of thing. But I would go up, but then sometimes I'd come back. But then eventually I went enough times that without signing up, that the other comics were like, come on, man, you should sign up, dude. You know, you had good jokes. So that was an encouragement enough for me to like, okay, let me keep doing this. And then slowly I started finding my own voice or starting to write more jokes that were in my style. Whereas before, when I first started out, I was basically doing an impression of a stand-up comic. It's like, oh, this is what stand-up comics are supposed to be. So that's what I'm going to do, as opposed to just like doing what I think is funny.
Yeah. Like you said, kind of following that Mitch Hedberg kind of thing. I gotta imagine, like, how many times did it take before you finally felt comfortable on stage?
I don't know, man. I honestly, and it sounds like I'm going to be exaggerating, but up to when I was like 10 years, around that time is when I really was like, okay, I'm comfortable up here. I don't really care. But before that, I mean, I didn't lose the mic stand till I was probably 6-7 years in, because I would like hold it up in front of me like I'm fucking like Eddie Vedder or some shit. Yeah, I would just like lean forward and backwards on it and shit like that. Yeah, because it's almost like a security blanket to have this little stick between you and the audience. But then I did enough, rowdy bar shows that couldn't even bother with a fucking mic stand, so I had to learn to just hold the thing. And then I got comfortable after that. But I mean, without a mic stand. But yeah, I would say it's not within the last 6 years that I really just got comfortable on stage. And I also drink, so that helps.
Yeah, that helps too. I'd be walking all over the place, walking back and forth.
I guess I'm finally over that part. Like I get a little anxious about like, all right, let's do this, but I don't really get nervous anymore.
Yeah, and was the nervousness like 10 years too, or no?
Yeah. I mean, but again, that's just me though, because I'm not even before I did stand up, I never thought I was going to be on stage ever, man. I was like, you ever have to do those presentations in school in front of class? Yeah. Like if I knew in advance when it was happening, I had the flu that day because I'm not fucking showing up. I was scared to death, anything public speaking. So I was like, I never really thought that I would ever do it. Eventually I did it, but it still wasn't like I was, super confident on stage. But there are other comics that, they fucking, some people just have those personalities.
Yeah, they just hit the ground running.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Grizz, have you ever done anything on stage like that?
Like stand-up comedy?
No. Stand-up comedy is a different animal. That's brutal. I'm talking about just like an actual public speaking where you're on a microphone in front of a group.
No, I don't think I'd have a problem with it though.
So the very first time that ever happened to me, it was thrust upon me, this the glory that it was. I was actually in middle school and there was some talent show going on. And of course, I was a normal middle schooler. I didn't have any talent. So I was making fun of everybody there. The teacher heard me.
Nothing's changed.
I know. I still make fun of everybody. But the teacher heard me and she was like, hey, you need to come with me right now. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man. She caught me. I'm in trouble. Thinking I'm going to the office. She brings me to an empty auditorium up on the stage and hands me the mic and a piece of paper and said, you're hosting the show.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. Man, that was rough. I got through it. And actually it was trial by fire. It worked out pretty well. it made a huge difference in my comfort level in front of people.
See, when you started that story and you told me like the teacher told you to go back to the auditorium, I thought this might have some sort of molestation ending, but it was even worse.
It was.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if it was a molestation thing, we'd be all right with it because it's a woman on Jerry.
That's right. Yeah, we'd be like high-fiving right now.
Way to go, man! Good job.
I'm perfectly fine being objectified at any stage in my life.
I mean, but honestly, if that had happened to me at that stage in my life, I would have taken the molestation over having to talk in front of people, man.
You know, I think most people would take that because talking in front of a crowd, if you've never done it before, it's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst experience you could have.
Yeah,
was the teacher hot?
What? I'd say she probably was, but it's very vague memory of what she looked like.
You had a bang though, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Without a doubt. I was in middle school.
Yeah, there you go.
I would have banged my desk if it had a hole in it.
Attaboy.
But double standards.
That's
no,
true.
I hated it. I wanted to avoid it at all costs. It was my biggest fear is having to be in front of people and talking. And then now I've done places with 5,000 people. That's another thing though, is people usually think like, wow, man, how's it like, wasn't it nerve-wracking 5,000 people? But I'll do 5,000 people any day. It's when you have 7 people that it's really hard to do stand-up and to fucking try to get this crowd going, and they're all self-conscious because they're not necessarily know each other, so they don't feel comfortable. Like, that's the toughest. Like, I'll take 5,000 any day. Not that I have the choice to do 5,000. Like, I'm talking about like, I'll do tomorrow I'm going to do 5,000. But
Thursday 7.
Yeah, Thursday at 7, just a secret show. We're going to keep it at 5,000. After that, we start turning people away.
Some people like the small shows. Yeah. Some people like the small shows though.
Oh, I'll take a like there's a club in Atlanta called the Laughing Skull that sits like 80, I think. And I've done shows that were very, like I did one I think like about a week ago where there was maybe seating for 40. Now those are good because you can have a small audience and still be a packed room, right?
Yeah.
No, and like those shows are fine. I'm talking about when you're in 100-person room and there's 7 people in the audience. That's when it's.
Some towns have, from what my understanding, some towns have a different humor than others, and if a town understands your humor and likes your humor, then you're golden. Where other towns, it's just like, what?
That's true to an extent because I run into that all the time. Like if I'm doing a big city versus a rural town, and it could be the same state, and it'll be a world of difference between being in the city and being, an hour out of the city. But because there's, if this is not a luxury I have, but like famous comics, like for example, I've toured with Doug Stanhope. Do you guys know Doug Stanhope? Mm-hmm. So I've toured with Doug, and we've done tours in the Southeast. We did Birmingham, Alabama, several times. And I remember when he posted about that show on his social media, people were like, oh shit. Like, what, you want to die? What the fuck are you doing in Birmingham, Alabama, dude? Yeah. But here's the thing is that those people aren't showing up to Stanhope's show, the people that would hate him. The people that are showing up now are the people that already know him.
Yeah, they'll go out of their way.
And they go out of their way. And not only that, man, but they're even more into the show than if you were doing, say, Chicago, because like in Chicago, New York, they're used to having shit like that all the time, man. But in Birmingham, Alabama, they not only are they not getting a lot of cool people coming around, but also they're surrounded by these fucking dickheads all the time. So they're even more enthused to see somebody come into town that's like fucking somebody that believes the same shit that I do, or that has the same sense of humor as I do. So so I say that. So I've done great shows in Birmingham with Stanhope opening for him. I've also done the club in Birmingham, the actual comedy club. And last time I was there, I got fired. So
really?
Same city, but just two totally different audiences.
Interesting.
And when you say fired, you just mean you bombed on stage?
No, well, both. That's why I got fired. That's cause and effect. Yeah, so, I did like a Tuesday night. I was supposed to be there like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think, or maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. And I did Tuesday, and it was just terrible. The club there is called the Stardome. It's this huge venue, but they on weekdays they do what they call paper the room, which is give out free tickets. So they give out free tickets for the weekday shows, and it's just riffraff. I mean, it's just like, because there's people, hey, it's free, fuck it, let's go. And so they're not really invested in the show. They're not really like, hey, I got in here for free, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Whereas if they had paid $25 for a ticket, then they'd be, well, I mean, okay, I'm gonna pay attention to the show. I want to fucking get a show.
They're also probably, they're comedy goers. They're looking for the laugh. Where just random people walking down the street are like, this could be good, bad, or otherwise.
Right. So I'd done that room before. Never done. At best, I'd done okay. But then that night was especially bad. So yeah, the next morning I got a call from the booker and like, hey, what happened last night? I'm like, it fucking sucked. And they're like, yeah, they want another comic. And I'm like, great. I don't want to fucking be here.
I don't have to deal with that shit again.
No. Yeah, I was not bummed out about that. But yeah, so going back to the question, yeah, city to city, it can depend what personalities the audience is going to have. But if you're famous, if you're attracting your people, then it really doesn't matter where you go. And you might even have better shows in little cities that are going to appreciate the fact that you're there.
That might be the benefit to social media nowadays, though, because you can have a following and they'll pay attention to where the hell you're going everywhere, even if you're not massive,
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, I don't even know. I was, when I started 15 years ago, social media wasn't a big thing, but I do remember talking to comics that took me on the road that had been doing it since the early 90s. And I was just surprised that they could do it. Forget just telling people where you're going to be as far as dates, but just getting to the gig. Like you have to take out an atlas and fucking figure out the route. And then when you get there, there's no cell phones. So you got to fucking find a payphone somewhere so you can get exact directions on how to get to the actual club. I was like, how the fuck and then how did you confirm gigs so you had to send an actual letter or talk on the phone directly to confirm these gigs. Like all that shit is mind blowing to me. And even then, like my technology then was printing maps from MapQuest to get to the gigs. Like that was like, how were you guys able to do comedy without these pieces of paper here that I print every time I go somewhere? And then, obviously eventually you got GPS and all that shit.
I would say, but they did what everyone else did. You got you pulled out the map, you found the street, and you drove on the street until you found the number.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah.
But it's been so long now that we haven't had to deal with these things. We're sitting there like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like I've become so reliable. Like I rely on my GPS. I mean, at some point, I was relying on my GPS so much that if that motherfucker had told me like, "Hey, now you're driving to the lake," I'll be fucking all right. I drive to the lake. You know what I mean? Like that, you can become that numb to that shit.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I love my GPS. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it wasn't that long ago that we were doing that shit.
No, I mean, unfortunately, back then, I wasn't a stand-up, so I wasn't really driving very far away. That's what would have scared me. Like I've never been to North Dakota before. All right, hope it works out. You know what I mean? Get that fucking Rand McNally or whatever the fuck.
Well, not only that, like you said, you're calling them when you're at home. You're probably not calling too much on the ride there unless you're finding a payphone.
Right.
And
yeah.
Hoping to God they still hold you, which back then they probably did. Nowadays they're probably more likely to be like, yeah, no, we'll cut you.
Yeah. No, it's I think about how it wasn't a piece of cake when I started, but even before that, I mean, but yeah, like you said, yeah, we did that. I mean, people had been doing that for decades.
Now, have you ever gotten like bumped by someone just because they decide to show up?
That happens a lot in New York, where if you're booked in some show and they, all the famous comics live, or LA, because all the famous comics live there. So if you're in a show and fucking Seinfeld show up, well, they're not gonna be like, well, sorry, Carlos is here, you gotta go home, Seinfeld. Yes. But it didn't, even when I lived in New York, it didn't happen to me too much because a lot of the shows that I did were more like independent shows. So they have more liberty to be like, oh, Hannibal Buress just showed up, so he'll do some time, but then you'll go, just go a little later or whatever. If I was working more at the comedy clubs like Caroline's or Gotham or Stand Up New York, like those type of places, I probably would have, run into that sooner or later.
Now, we getting back to when you're talking about the different demographics, if you're going to like a really rural show followed up by something in the middle of a city, and it's not an audience is expecting you, Do you have like a separate set of jokes for rednecks and those sophisticated city types?
I can switch some stuff up like to an extent. Like if the bit is short enough, I can exclude it or replace it with something else. And then I know certain shit is just not gonna fly as well in one town or another, so I'll swap it with something else. I mean, because usually I still have to do the same amount of time in both places, so I can't just do 30 minutes in one place and 45 at the other. Mm. But the core of what I do still basically remains the same. It's not like I go into the city and tell them how I hate racists, and then I do a KKK rally when I'm in the bumfuck. You know what I mean? It's
so it's more like when you go south to Birmingham, you just do the same jokes with a southern accent.
That's right. And then I say, get her done a lot. Has anybody done that before? Get her done? No, but the core of what I do remains the same. And if it's a long bit, then it just stays. Because I was doing a bit, which I think it's in my last album, so I don't do it as much anymore, about the rebel flag and how, I don't get what the pride is in the rebel flag because you lost the war. You should be waving a white flag. But so I had a long bit about that. And it was too long. I had to do it wherever I went. So I was doing that in the South. I was doing that in the North. I just did that everywhere. So there's certain bits that I knew, and I knew that when I was doing fucking Tuscaloosa, it wasn't gonna fly there.
Yeah,
almost literally.
Yeah, you were gonna get booze.
Yeah, but the way I do it is basically, I don't start off my set with that. I try to establish myself as Andy Holland, because that's how I identify as Andy Holland for podcasts. But I try to establish that I'm funny, at least telling some jokes that usually that always work, for lack of a better way of putting it. So after I do about 10 minutes of that, then I'll drop the rebel flag bit.
Yeah,
and at that point, they may or may not be receptive. But even if they're not receptive, at least I've already established they know, like, okay, that's a funny guy up there. Okay, I might disagree.
This joke might not hit, but I'm waiting for the next one.
Exactly. He already proved to us that he can be funny. All right, we'll give him. Yeah. So so if I tell something like that, they'll be more like, okay, well, that wasn't for me, but I know there's something else coming. I know this guy can do it. Mm. So that's basically how I do it. That's how I approach it when I have bits that I know are going to be not going to hit well in a certain place. I establish myself first, and then all right, you didn't like that part. I'll get you with the next round of dick jokes.
So are you still laughing at your own jokes when you're up there a year into a tour?
No, man, I don't laugh at my jokes the fucking day after the fucking tour. I don't. I was just telling somebody that because we were talking about Chappelle. And it's a pet peeve of mine when comics laugh too much at their own jokes.
Yeah, they got to really get it out. Yeah.
I think it was Jimmy Fallon, right? Jimmy Fallon was wicked bad.
Oh, that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he would laugh in the middle of sketches.
If you watched him on SNL, man, every fucking sketch, he'd be laughing in the middle of it. I think he was probably high as fuck, but.
Well, yeah. See, and if it's a sketch thing when there's other people around and you don't know what they're gonna do or they fuck up or something, but as a stand-up, you've heard your own jokes, dude, like 5,000 times. There's no way you're catching yourself by surprise.
Yeah, but he'd be laughing at his own fucking bit in the sketch. Like it killed me every time. Like, dude, stop laughing at yourself.
But that's and I still like Chappelle. I mean, I also do agree that I liked him better back in the day. But that is one thing that's a pet peeve of mine that Chappelle does sometimes. He'll like bend over and bump the mic against his thigh. And I'm like, come on, Dave, you told this joke before, man. You're not being caught by surprise by your own fucking wit right now.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wonder with him if he's trying to sell it that he's enjoying it or something,
Well, that is basically what it is. It's kind of because somebody did hit me up after I posted that, and they didn't want to comment publicly because fucking you can't say anything and people are going to jump on you. But he was like, yeah, I don't like that either in comics because it basically is kind of like the equivalent of a laugh track if you're watching a sitcom. It's like, hey, this is your cue to laugh. I'm laughing.
Exactly.
So you should be laughing too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, much like Grizz, I like being a trained monkey. I don't have to think if they tell me when.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's right. Maybe that's the key, man. Just fucking, if you just train them to laugh, then you don't have to do any of the work.
No, fuck that. Nope. Yeah, I get the dumbest shit to make me laugh though. My wife hates it. She can't understand it. She's like,
"Oh, I'm that way, man." I mean, like that's the other part is like I I also I always like was a big fan of like Bill Hicks, and Stanhope is one of my favorites. I like comics. Richard Pryor's Carlin.
oh, Richard Pryor.
You know, like I love comics that have that say very intelligent stuff and have a very good point to make. Like I like that stuff. But I also like fart jokes, dude. Like I still can't, I'm still not. I don't want to ever turn it. I never want to turn into the cunt that's like, I'm above laughing at turds. It's like, no, the fucking word turd is funny, man. Fuck you.
Dude, Mitch Hedberg, it was like, hey man, do you want a frozen banana? No, but I want a regular banana later.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. That was I love all those silly jokes like that. One of my favorites. Did you guys ever watch Mr. Show?
No.
I did not, no.
Mr. Show was a HBO sketch show, and it was David Cross and Bob Odenkirk were the head guys. But they had all kinds of people that are famous now were on that, like Patton Oswalt, Brian Posehn, Jack Black, Sarah Silverman. Anyway, it was a fucking great cast. But they had one sketch. It's called the Everest sketch. And it's this guy that comes back from Everest, and he's telling the story of going to Everest, but he keeps slipping and knocking down all this porcelain shit. And so they have to, they got to stop and put all the stuff back in place. And so he goes into the story again, falls over, knocks everything down.
Shit down again.
This happens like 5-6 times. And I've never laughed harder in my life at anything because it's just so stupid. Yeah. It's like by the end of the sketch, the people that are listening to the story are just almost in tears because they know he's about to knock everything over. And it's not even that clever. It's just this repetition of the absurd that just cracks me up. So I love all that shit.
It's like slapstick comedy, right?
Yeah,
slapstick comedy movies. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm getting older, but a good one hasn't come out for a while. You know what I mean? Like the 90s is basically Mel Brooks just fucking hammered everything, and that shit was great. But now, I mean, I watched one maybe a few weeks ago, and I don't know if it's just too dumb where I'm sitting there like, yeah, I saw that coming 6 years ago. Come on, give me some. You got to catch me off guard.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the crux of everything, is the misdirection. Just hit somebody where they don't expect it to come. Like I actually wanted to do that once. I had that idea for a TV show, but it's just too mean. Of like having you can have like 2-3 stand-up comics, veterans, and then have open micers go up and do their sets, and then when you ring a button or something, you can say where the joke was going. Because it happens so often when you see an open micer start with a certain premise, and you're like, oh, I bet you this is where they're going. And you can boom, stop.
Oh yeah, like a timer.
Yeah, and then you can stop them because you see where the joke is coming. And it happens, but it would be too mean. I mean, like now you'd be crushing open micers.
But that's good. Maybe because I mean now, what's his name that does that? He's in LA.
Who?
I can't think of his fucking name right now.
That does what though?
He it's not the same idea. He gives it.
You're talking about the Doug Benson interruption?
No, he gives comedians a minute.
Kill Tony Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, Kill Tony, which Tony Hinchcliffe I don't find funny, but if you do, great.
I really haven't heard his stand-up.
But I like the idea that he gives everyone a minute, right? And at the same time, perfect place, because those people are trying to, hone their craft. And if you're telling them, hey, we're seeing this coming a mile away, guess what? Either figure it out or throw that joke out.
That's true, but I mean, some people have thicker skin than others, though, man.
But I think if you're a comedian, you got to have thick skin. I think if you're in the spotlight, you got to have thick skin. Guess what?
For sure, you got to grow it at the very least. If you don't have it when you begin.
Well, Grizz, I think you're also a hard man to please. You're a real stickler for stuff like that.
Not when it comes to comedy, man. Dude, the dumbest shit makes me
when it
laugh.
comes to comedy, for sure. I laugh at the stupidest shit that Grizz is like.
Oh my god,
that's not funny. Like I didn't even send him what my son sent me today. He probably would have. But my son sent me the worst Photoshop I've ever seen. He took a picture of our dog taking a shit, looking dead into the camera, and made it black and white and turned it into a $5 bill.
Oh,
okay, that's good.
That's good.
we have a mini dachshund, so he looks like an idiot anyway. And so his name is Peanut, and he sent me the Photoshop. It said 5 peanutters.
And that's pretty good though. That he fucking the Photoshop skills. Kid's 11.
Yeah, but still, that was the greatest thing I'd seen all week.
Well, did you guys ever hear? I hate to paraphrase it because he's one of my favorite comics that passed away. Was Greg Giraldo? Do you guys ever listen to Giraldo?
Not to my knowledge.
Greg Giraldo was fucking amazing. He used to do a lot of the early roasts in the 2000s.
Oh, roasts are fantastic.
And he was amazing at them. He was probably the best because he was probably the least famous person on the dais, but he always had the best jokes. But this is just from his stand-up or something. It was something like he was talking to his son, and his son is like, "Hey, Daddy, why do all the bad people want to kill the good people?" And he's like, "Well, that's just unfortunately how the world works." But the worst part is that my son's like, he's 23. Or something like that. I butchered it. I hate to butcher it, but that was basically the premise. But yeah, if you haven't listened to Greg Giraldo, good Lord, man, he's fucking. What I appreciated about him more than probably some other comics is that he was Hispanic. He was actually, I think it was like half Colombian, which I'm Colombian too. I was born in the States, but my family, both my parents are Colombian. But if you watch his stand-up, he rarely ever mentioned being Hispanic, because that's what I loved about it. Because too many, not just Hispanic, but just any ethnicity comics just hold on to that, and that's their whole bit. And I'm like, you can talk about it, you can mention it. Obviously, it's who you are, but fucking, I get bored with anybody that's talking about the same shit for 50 minutes. You know what I mean?
Carlos Valencia, fucking.
Yeah. So it was like, bunch of them. Back in the day, it was like Mencia and Paul Rodriguez, and I think although I haven't really seen much of his shit, but I think that the big fat guy Gabriel Iglesias.
I was gonna say he plays more to being fat, I think, than he does to being Mexican.
Or
but
fat,
I think he does both.
But anyway, that shit bores me to death. But if you saw Giraldo, man, he might have mentioned it once or twice, but it's just his shit's just hilarious on its own. It just stands on its own.
I think with the roast though, I feel like you got to be in that crowd, right? That's got to be happening all the time. Because if you've ever been around someone who can roast people on the fly, they don't even have to know them that well. Mm-hmm. It's part of your life 24/7. Like Jerry and I have worked with areas where like literally there's no second of the day that you have to be on your toes or you're just going to get shit on. But as soon as you get
where was this?
That,
where?
It basically working like trades jobs, right? Okay. Where you're just gonna get shit on. If you're not in that field, you're just not. You're not gonna be as quick. You're not gonna come up with that joke immediately. Like, so to me, that dude's just living on edge constantly, ready to shit on anyone around him.
Well, and Giraldo was part of that crew that was the tough crowd crew with like Nick DiPaolo and Colin Quinn and Patrice O'Neill. Bill Burr was also part of that crowd. So yeah, these motherfuckers are constantly giving each other shit.
I guarantee you, Bill Burr's shitting on everything and anything.
Yeah, so that's why I was just talking to a comic that we had on the podcast just the other day, where I tell him that's how like as a comic, if I give a fuck about you is if I give you shit. Yep. If I didn't give a fuck about you, I wouldn't give you shit. The ones that I care the most about, those are the ones that I'm constantly.
Yeah, I'm gonna shit on you constantly. That's how.
And then they shit on me, and it's hilarious too. I mean, it's all fun. Like that's why I think that might be part of what people don't understand with stand-up comics when they see them do their sets, is that it's all meant to make people laugh. It's not really, you could say it might sound to a third person like the most vicious shit you could ever say to a friend. But no, it's love, man, and they appreciate it. Yeah.
I also wonder if that's going to change with a generation, right? Because, like, I think with our generation, you don't want it to, right? See, I just offended Jerry, right? Because I told him something that's true, but he doesn't want to know it. Because our generation, that was our thing, and even previous generations, right? You show that you like someone by shitting on you. If I don't like you, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to shut up and go on my merry way. But now, with how everyone's going, like I don't hear my kids' friends shitting on each other as much as we did. feel like
I
that
don't know,
was
man.
a thing.
My son does it constantly. He's that guy who roasts everything that walks past him.
No, my son tries to, but he can't figure it out.
Man, that sounds more like bad parenting to me, man. You're just letting this kid go rampant, just fucking yelling at the mailman and shit.
He's just
I tell him he fails. Actually,
it's like living with a tiny Ryan Reynolds. It's the most ridiculous thing. So I was wondering while we're talking here, who have you seen before they got big? You saw them and you were like, yeah, these guys are going to go somewhere. And I think the only person I saw was Amy Schumer. Saw her before she blew up.
When did you see her? Like what time frame?
Oh shit, man. That's a good question. I would say like 2010 or 11.
Okay. Because here's the thing is like, because I followed comedy so much at that point when I started, like stand up, I was a big fan. So I probably knew a lot of comics that were had been on TV but weren't necessarily like blown up.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was still fairly known, but I saw Louis C.K. at the comedy club once.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's trying to make a comeback, isn't he?
Probably. I mean, it's again like we were talking about. There's a controversy for a while. People forget.
Yeah, he got bombed though. Like he got
for sure. Hardcore. But he, like a year after I saw him, he was just doing theaters all over the place. He doesn't do really comedy clubs anymore. I mean, when I met Tom Segura, we were just doing a comedy club, so he wasn't really as huge as he is now, where he just does theaters all over the place.
Yeah,
I think those are a couple that I saw, and then there's others that are that have very good careers now, but not necessarily household names that I've worked with in the past.
Yeah, I wonder how much, especially now with the way the environment is, if they kind of stay underground, because just the fear of backlash if you made it into mainstream.
I mean, I know that there is a lot of comics that I think it's almost like a rule now that if you get a big thing, before they even announce the big thing, they tell you, go through your Twitter, fucking scrap whatever you can, look through the whole fucking thing.
I think they're telling that to everyone now. We just did a medical student like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
And they told him the same thing. They said, hey, get rid of all social media. Just burn it.
Not just go through it. They were like, delete everything. They don't exist on the internet.
Now, granted, I don't know how much you could do that as a stand-up comedian, but...
I mean, once it's announced that you're famous, it's almost like there's a squad out there ready to like screen capture every tweet once somebody gets announced that they got a big thing. Like, boom, go in there, screen cap everything before they delete
take it out of context. And you're like, I didn't really mean to kill as many children as you can.
That's right. Yeah, they're greatly exaggerating the number of kids I killed. Some I just raped.
I totally think women are funny.
And then that's so that's a thing now. It's like people are got to be aware of what. I had a friend that just did he did that show the Impractical Jokers, they have a game show.
Oh yeah. Yep, I don't know what it's called.
It's Crisis something like that. And just to do that show, he was like a contestant. He had to go through his fucking Twitter to go through everything, because if they go through your shit and they find something offensive, then they can't have you on.
There's probably going to be a job that's going to be a career. What are you? I'm a social media scrubber.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, you know how you got to sign freaking NDTs now? All right, let me go through. We're going to scan your social media and anything you have that's bad.
I've heard of companies that do. I mean, not necessarily just Twitter, but like they'll try to go through your history of everything to try to scrap everything. But I mean, come on, man. I mean, at this point, I've got like at least a 12-year history of a lot of offensive shit. I can't. It would take me another 15 years to fucking scrub that shit. So it's like, at this point, it's just like take it or leave it, man.
Well, so that's what we were talking about before you got on here. Is like, is there a point where enough people in the industry, whether it be comedy or entertainment or whatever, just say, God, I'm tired of this shit. Fuck it. And just put out whatever they put out. Their intentions are not bad, right? And they're just that, you know what? We're sick of this like tiptoeing on eggshells 24/7. And they just do their thing. Like, that's what I'm hoping we get back to.
Hopefully. I mean, and that is possible because it's been done. I mean, before Louis' whole thing, he was just releasing shit on his website. It was like, hey, it's $5 or whatever, $10.
Louis C.K. was hilarious. Made me laugh my ass off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he was doing it basically. I mean, he was jumping. I mean, not jumping, but he was just cutting the middleman and just releasing the albums himself. So it is possible to do that. I guess that is one other thing that's fortunate about the internet, as far as the stand-up comic is concerned, is that you could just record your own thing and put it on YouTube. Now the thing is, like, it's a lot harder to do it as a if you don't really have a following. If you have a following, like at this point, I think Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, Chappelle, even all of them, if they wanted to, they could just release their shit by themselves
and have their own website. No one's going to stop them.
Exactly, they can do, and people are going to buy that shit because they have a huge fan base. As a starting comedian or as a comedian that's not famous, then you can do that. You can put your thing out there, but it's going to be hard.
A slow grind.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get people's attention, and then now you have to worry, or not worry, but just if you really want to get the word out about your shit, you got to do promo and all this other shit that most comedians just absolutely suck at.
But my killer with that is, like, you take Bill Burr, right? He started a podcast. Have you listened to it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't listen regularly, but I have in the past.
It's fucking garbage. Like, as a comedian, sure, I enjoy your shit. I'll laugh my ass off. But I listened to his podcast and I was like, I might as well go fucking sit at the end of the street and talk to hobos. Like,
isn't it just him, right? Isn't it just him talking?
It's him literally swearing like every 2 seconds.
That's the thing, is like,
that's how he talks.
I know. Yeah. Listen, he's from Massachusetts.
The podcast is obviously super popular because he's got a big. But I get bored listening to just one person talk for a long time. Like, I don't. But obviously, that's some people dig it. But again, I mean, when he started that, he wasn't as famous as he is now, but he already was Bill Burr. Like, he was comics already knew.
Oh, he already had a name. I don't think he would have started a podcast if it wasn't like, every celebrity's starting one.
So that's the thing with a lot of these, like a lot of questions that I get is there's one answer for famous comics. There's one answer for non-famous comics. And I actually, was a friend of mine, I just saw a post today she was talking about cancel culture, and a lot of people talk about, like, there is no such thing as cancel culture, and Chappelle's going to be fine and all this. And that's true. Chappelle's going to be fine. He's going to be a millionaire tomorrow and probably the rest of his life. But where the cancel thing, and this is how she put it, comes into play is non-famous comedians. How about the comic that just did a gig? I'm going to give my own example. I did a gig once in Chattanooga, and some woman took it the wrong way. She thought I misgendered her. Some kind of horse shit that I didn't even realize. I didn't have any jokes about that shit. But she posted a complaint on the venue's Facebook thing, and now I can't go back there.
Yeah, you get blacklisted.
Yeah, right. And so now I can't go back there to that venue. I mean, obviously I can do another venue, and I've been back to Chattanooga, but it's people that don't have, if you do that enough to comics that don't have the following that Chappelle has, you could potentially drive them out of the business.
Exactly. And that's my problem, because to me, the comics that are funny are the ones that are up and coming. Like, show me a big wig that's made it and came up with good stuff again.
Right.
Most of them die off, right? You give me any name. Chappelle, his later years, he's been dying off. Jeff Dunham, he died off. Like, all of them in their later years, they die off. So why do I care about keeping them going?
And you're absolutely. And I think part of it is that they don't have that same drive that they had when they were coming up.
I think it has to do with a lot of struggles too, right? Like, struggles is what is going to bring the comedy out of people, I think. Yeah. Once you're making a shit ton of money, you can't relate to the everyday person.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree.
It goes downhill.
Yeah, I guess it becomes a lot harder to make fun of a poor person when you're not poor.
Right, when you're not a poor person anymore. Yeah, you're right.
Think you're just donating all the money you make, which fine.
And also,
doing that.
Another part of it too, though, and I don't think this is the problem with Chappelle. I think I was saying that Chappelle is rich now, man, so he doesn't have the same struggles. He also doesn't have to worry about being fired at a comedy club if he says the wrong thing, that sort of thing. But I mean, that's that.
I also wonder, is he? I think younger, new, up and coming might be they might be more likely to press the edge, right? They're always on that cutting edge of comedy, where someone who's been doing it, they might have something that's controversial, but are they pressing the edge of comedy? Maybe not.
Yeah, actually, and that's what I was actually wanting to say is that Chappelle, I don't think he gives a fuck, but there are other comics that once they get to a certain point, now you're like almost a business. Now, like there's a publicist, there's an agent. If you have a production company, then there's other people working for you, all kinds of people. So now what you say, if it gets you in trouble, also gets in trouble everybody that you employ.
Yeah.
So now you have to worry about those concerns. And then there's comics that have all kinds of endorsement deals. Like Kevin Hart is like credit cards and fucking fast food or whatever. Does all kinds of shit. So he has to worry. Like if he says something wrong, he might lose millions and millions in endorsements. So I do think, when they become that successful and they become that involved with the business, then they do second guess themselves about, oh, well, I don't know, man. I just signed with whatever MasterCard. I don't want to risk that endorsement.
Kevin Hart's another one that died off. Actually, I think maybe it's just me. A lot of comedians, when they get divorced, their shit goes down. I don't know why.
Is that right? Well, I've never gotten married, so that's my thing.
See?
I have no excuse. Yeah, but no, and then I agree with that. I agree that once they get bigger, they do become more, at least several of them. I can't say all of them, but a lot of them become more apprehensive.
Now, in the comedian circles, you guys define success by fame, or is it something else? Because, there's countless comedians I've never heard of, and they're probably doing just fine. What is success to someone like that?
I mean, I think with that, the definition changes just like you would with anybody else, any other profession. Like the guys that, like my opinion, success is just being able to do this for a living. Like I don't like, and I've had this attitude for a long time, even when I started out, where I was like, I don't care if I'm ever on TV. If I die when I'm 65 and what I did for a living was stand-up comedy, then I win. Because I got to do something fun for however many years, whereas most people don't get that luxury. Most people are stuck working at a place that they don't like, but it's just they give them money for their hours of their life, and then they retire when they're too old to enjoy life at 60. You know what I mean? So so I basically look at it, well, if I can do this for a living, then Jesus Christ, man, I just lived a life enjoying every fucking day of it. I mean,
doing what you wanted to do.
Doing what I wanted to do. Yeah, I'm not going to say really enjoying. I've done some shit shows that probably, but still, I had a friend that put it once, which is not, it sounds a little hyperbolic, but it's still kind of true, where he did comedy for about 12 years, quit for about 3 years because he was getting a divorce, by the way. So that should tell you something.
His comedy went to shit.
But he got a job at a warehouse or some shit like that. And the way he put it was like, my worst day in stand-up was still better than my best day at the warehouse, sort of thing. And I think part of it is, you're doing something that you love to do. So you can't, as many shit shows as I might do and booker problems or people getting offended, I still prefer this towards the alternative of, like, I used to work at a bank. That was my job before stand-up. To still be at the bank and the corporate world, it's just not for me. So that's how I would define success. Now, also, you want to have the appreciation of your peers. I think that would be another point that I would make. If you want to be a successful comic, you want to at least be able to say that, hey, other comics appreciate what I do. They don't think I'm a fucking stupid hack that just does generic material or whatever. So that's probably the thing that means the most to me, is when I've had comics like Doug Stanhope or Tom Segura bring me out on the road, because they're basically saying like, hey, I like what you do, it's good enough to open for me. So I definitely appreciate that a lot, like the appreciation of other comics.
I think that's a big part of comedy in general, right? Is that someone took them under their wing at some point. Right. And that's how you get seen. That's how you get grown.
Yeah.
Right?
But the thing is, like, a lot of comics don't do that, man. Like when I first met like Segura, we did a gig in Appleton, Wisconsin, and we got along super good the whole weekend. And he was like, yeah, man, we should work together again. And I've heard that so many times. Like I've heard that, like I go all over, like I'm opening for another comic. They're like, "Oh, it's great, man. We'll work together again." I'm like, "Yeah, great." And then you never
hear. They
don't
want to be a dick.
Yeah, and then you never hear from them again. But Tom, sure enough, man, within like 6 months, he asked me if I could open for him. So I actually couldn't do it, but he asked me. And then like a year later, we did a tour together, and I've opened for him a couple of times since then. So yeah, so I think that is probably what I appreciate the most. Now, if you were to ask that question to a multimillionaire comic that every comic hates, they would be like, "No, it's the money. It's the money. That's why you define success." I think basically it depends on who you ask.
Because some of them it's like to hit a 50,000 plus or whatever number crowd, and
exactly, or make bigger and bigger theaters, or like, I'm only doing theaters. I want to do stadiums, like that sort of thing. Like
I've heard others who were just like, once I get my Netflix special, that's when I know I've made it.
I mean, there's different. I'm just happy as long as I can keep doing stand-up comedy. I'm fine. Everything else would just be and obviously, doing you guys' podcast is probably the highlight of
course
my career.
Well, we kind of tell that to all our guests. We're actually doing you a service.
Thank you.
This is a $50,000 value, and we're going to give it to you.
Oh my God!
True. We had a woman do that. We had a woman be like, "Oh, I normally charge $500."
Well, I mean, I think that was just Zoom's. Andy, it was your turn to freeze. No, not Andy. See, I'm calling everybody Andy. See,
that's fine.
This episode we're all Andy.
Yeah, everybody's Andy. It's the Andy, and Andy,
and whatever the other Gruber is.
But you froze. It was your turn to freeze, and you froze at "we had a woman."
Yeah, so we had a woman.
Yeah, but that's where it stopped, and I'm like, "Holy shit! This is fucking Zoom trying to prevent a lawsuit right here."
No, we had a woman.
We had a woman.
She molested Jerry and I. It was awful. No, we had a woman come on, and she was like, "Yeah, normally I charge $500 for this." We were like, "That's great. We would never have paid you." Like,
now, do you do just guests on your podcast? What's your podcast all about?
It's called Indecorous Comedy. We do. It's a comedy podcast, first of all, but I didn't want to do a podcast about. It's me and two other guys, Ian and Bobby is their names, and they wanted it. They actually brought them up. Like Ian, I think might have been the first one to bring it up. But the thing is, like, I didn't want to do a podcast where just we would talk, just us three, because I think we would run out of shit to talk about. So definitely I thought, like, well, we have to have guests, and then I also wanted to have another level to it, and so we do like historical shit, like weird, dark, or absurd shit from history, or just weird facts sort of thing. So like we do that once. Like I've actually learned a lot since I started doing it, because like I didn't know. Like, do you guys know that when they filmed The Wizard of Oz, there was like a big huge midget orgy?
What?
I thought you were going to talk about the dude hanging himself. Nope, didn't know about that.
No. I mean, it probably was autoerotic asphyxiation from all the stories I've heard. But yeah, apparently this was like the biggest gathering of little people. I just say little people. I don't want to get you guys canceled. And apparently they just went wild, man. They put them all in the same hotel room, and they put them like four at a room. I know. It's
Who
like,
organized this?
It's like I'm like, even as I said it, I was like,
hey, we don't really give a shit about you, so we're slamming you all in one room. It's only
the Illuminati. We'll just call it the Illuminati. Put them all in a hotel room, and apparently they couldn't keep from fucking each other, so they were just having like daily orgies, and they would get drunk, and they would have to go out and catch them and shit, like with a net. I don't know what it was.
And then one of them hung themselves.
Yeah, they wanted them hung them. So yeah, I didn't know that dark turn.
You didn't know that? You can, if you had the original, like it was all these Disney movies back in the day, right? I don't know if you can still find it, but in the original, if you watched, they're going down the yellow brick road or whatever, and in the trees in the background, you can see a midget hanging. Like it's hanging from a tree.
Really?
The news fucking just.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, what? I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
you've heard of like Little Mermaid has dicks on the front page on the cover, right? What the?
Yeah.
Is this? Did you get this from QAnon?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
it sounds like some shit that they would make up. But the midget suicide aside, back then when they made that movie, they weren't exactly big on treating people fairly, so they probably just said the orgy was how they were paying them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're paying you in cum. And apparently
Jerry,
these midgets were out of
I
control.
can't share the screen. Look up the image of the midget hanging himself. It's probably covered in cum.
Nobody wants to see that shit.
Yeah, but it's just dripping in cum. He actually was suffocated by the cum first, and then he hung him. So then they hung him to make it look like a suicide.
That was a Japanese chick like 2 years ago. She was the first woman to drown in it.
It drowned in cum?
Yeah,
that sounds right.
It was one of those Japanese...
the Bukkake videos?
Bukkake friggin' videos. And she literally drowned. And one of the dudes in the video tried to save her life. That man's got devotion.
This let me run this by you guys, because actually let me ask you, how old are you, Andy, and then you too, Andy, and then Andy can go after that.
Andy is what, 33, 34?
Me?
Yeah,
I just turned 33 last week.
Oh, happy birthday!
Happy
man.
birthday, you
Libra.
Yeah,
well
balanced. Well balanced.
That's right. There you go. How about you, Andy?
I'm 37.
Andy? All right. I have this joke that I've been telling lately, and I don't like doing material, but the reason I do this joke is because only about 20% of the audience gets it. Sometimes even as little as 10, but they laugh really hard, and then everybody's just weirded out.
Yeah, everyone's like, why are you laughing?
And that amuses me. Like, that part amuses me, just the fact that only like a small percentage of the audience got it. So this is and I'm not gonna do the whole bit, but the joke is basically like, if you have a small penis, you should have sex with a Japanese lady because they're used to the small penises. Like, that's the advice that I got. Like, hey, you got a small penis, fuck a Japanese lady. Japanese dudes, small penises. And I'm like, I don't think I could do that because I'm very intimidated to have sex with a Japanese woman because it's hard enough to find the G-spot as it is, let alone trying to find it on a blurry pussy.
So
did you get it? Did you get it?
Of course.
Okay, see, you say of course, I say of course, and then I tell it in front of 300 people and only 30 people laugh. And everybody's like, "What a blurry pussy."
All right, so I have a story that goes perfectly with this.
Okay.
So I'm in Japan, and with a bunch of buddies, and one of them, this dude lost his virginity to I want to say a 47-year-old Thai hooker, just to give you the idea here. And dude had no game, couldn't get laid outside of a whorehouse, right?
Well, that's shocking that. A guy that lost his virginity for a 47-year-old Thai hooker.
Yeah, but a 47-year-old Thai hooker looks like a 12-year-old boy.
That is true. If you're lucky, yeah.
So he's bitching that he wants to get laid. So we're walking down the red light district in Japan. And me and my buddies are all in the middle of the street. We're just drinking, having a good time. And he's going door to door with our one buddy who actually speaks Japanese. And he's going door to door, and he's getting shut down left and right. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, man. We get to the end of the street, and he's been turned down everywhere. And we look at our Japanese buddy, and we're like, what the hell happened? None of the hookers would touch him, because if any of their Japanese regulars saw him go in there, they would never touch her ever again, because they felt that now she would be torn up by a massive American penis.
Really? Wow.
Yep. True story.
And just like that, we no longer have a Japanese audience.
That's right. That's true story. I'm not fucking making fun of anyone.
I didn't know that was a stereotype.
Yeah. That was fucking no word of a lie. That happened. He then later went and took a shit in the woods, and we made him wipe his ass with Armor All wipes. But that's something else.
Oh boy.
Yes, they held him down and wiped his ass with Armor All wipes.
Well, I mean,
I made that part up.
Everybody's got their own way of coming, you know what I mean? I don't judge. I wonder though if it's because I was saying that stereotype is that Americans got big penises, but I wonder if it's just that they're so used to Japanese men having small penises.
Wasn't that the Americans have big penises, is that they're smaller than everyone.
Theirs are so small that in comparison, American looks big.
Exactly. Either
way, it works out though. I mean, I guess it didn't work out for that dude, but if he had any game, it probably would have worked out.
He just said, no, I'm small.
Yeah, he just just with a regular lady, man, he can just show up his passport, and then she'll be like, "Well, okay, so you must have a huge dick."
You're American, you must.
Yeah, that's a blue passport. You must have a huge dick.
They did that shit years ago, where they had a map of the world, and they did the average dick size.
Oh, really?
You don't remember that?
I thought you were going to say that they were putting dick size on the passport now.
That's what they should.
They should.
Yeah,
I think preference by size.
Exactly. That's right. No, I don't. I mean, I'm sure. I don't doubt that they did the measuring around the world. Who won?
Africa.
Damn.
By far.
I think they were tied with they were tied with Norway or some weird place like that.
What? Really?
They were real close.
Shortest was, and this, again, this is an average. The shortest was Korea, between North and South.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, like they got a lot of zeros when they measured Korea because nobody would show. That brings the average down.
Yeah, that's true. I bet you the North Koreans are the malnutrition. They have the malnutrition penises. You can't get
Does
a good rating.
Does that affect the length of penis? I'm not even sure.
The blood flow. You know what I mean? It's got a. Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lower blood.
No. Well, just ask your North Korean listeners to send us pictures.
We got canceled from them a long time
ago.
ago.
Did you? God, that's the only reason I'm on the podcast. I have a tour of North Korea. I got Pyongyang.
I think
I'm doing the Bojangles Pyongyang Auditorium here coming up.
Have you done any international stuff?
No, man. I'd like to, but the thing is, I have well, this only really applies to Canada, but I have a DUI. So
so they won't let you go into Canada?
They're super hardcore about DUIs. Like I've been offered gigs like in I forget what the name of the town is, but it's right across the bridge from Detroit. And a guy hit me up a while ago, like, "Hey man, you want to do this gig?" And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I can get past the border because apparently if you have a DUI, it's a fucking nightmare for them to let you into the country.
You can still get in, man. I've been across the border with a guy who had a DUI. They just take longer on you. That's all.
How long ago was that?
Shit. 2004, maybe.
Okay. Well, it's like because I think it is a post 9/11. Well, it's after 9/11, I think, is when they became but
the alcoholics didn't take down the towers.
So that's my argument. I tell the Mounties, like, hey man, it wasn't drunks that took down the towers, bro.
No.
And they're like, well, come in, hey, or whatever. I don't know what the fuck they say. They speak the same language, right?
Yeah, they speak. Well, unless you're going to Quebec.
That's right. Yeah, but I don't know. I haven't. I'd like to. I know a lot of friends of mine have done like military-based tours and done Korea and Japan. Shit. Yeah, that sort of shit.
Yeah, USO probably shouldn't be that hard to get on, right?
I don't think so.
Do they have to ask you?
I haven't literally looked into it. I mean, I think if you know enough people that have done it before, they can put a good word in for you. But that's another one of those weird ones that we were talking about. Censorship and shit. I have several friends that have done these military gigs, and they give them all. I did because I've done military bases here in the States, and they give a lot. You get like what they call an itinerary before you do a show, and they tell what's got all the rules, like don't say this or talk about that or blah blah blah. It tells you where the hotel is, all that shit.
Which kills me because realistically, when it comes to military members, be as dark and fucking cruel as ever. Well,
and that's kind of where I was going because I the times I've done military bases, I get that shit, but I've also heard this from friends of mine that have done like the Middle East and shit, and they're like, listen, they tell you all the rules because whoever's telling you the rules, that's their job. They have to tell you, like they have to say that to you. Yep. But when you go up there, man, fucking these motherfuckers will go with what, like the darker, the better, the dirtier, the better. It's just that the person that told you that they have to say that because otherwise they'll get in trouble. So it's almost like, I don't know, like they have to go through the motions of like, hey, please don't talk about this. But it's just so they can cover their ass. Like, no, I told them.
Who was it the other day that I was cracking jokes about? Alec Baldwin, fucking shot his director.
He murdered like 17 people
director.
Or some shit.
Fucking, I don't know Alec Baldwin. I don't know the director of photography. I didn't know the director. I don't know them. I don't know any of their family. Guess what? I'm gonna make jokes about it and I'm gonna laugh my ass off. Does it suck? Yeah, but guess what? It's funny shit too.
Yeah, I mean that's the bottom line with me. Is it funny or is it not funny? That's all I care. Like if you told a joke, the worst I can say about it is I didn't think it was funny, and I wouldn't even go as far as saying it's not funny. I would just say I didn't think it was funny. Yeah, other people might still laugh. Like that's going back to stand up again. Is like that's one of the things that gets me the most when people say that's not funny, or you're not funny, or that joke wasn't. It's like,
it's all
maybe it wasn't funny to you. Like, you have every right not to find it funny or find me funny. That's perfectly fine. My problem is with these people that feel so entitled that it's because they didn't find it funny that nobody can find it funny. So then you can go fuck yourself.
Listen, I don't find most women comedians funny, but that doesn't mean they're not funny. There are plenty of people who enjoy that shit.
And I tell people, it's like, if my mom died trampled by an elephant, and then a comic went up there and told jokes about women being trampled by elephants, I probably wouldn't laugh at it because it would be like, oh man, it hits too close to home. But I wouldn't be like, dude, you can't be telling jokes about elephants trampling women because me.
Exactly.
Like, these jokes aren't tailored to me. It's they're jokes, man. Just, okay, you didn't like that one, you move on to the next one, or fucking leave the room, or don't listen. Nobody is putting a gun to your head.
But if you enjoy comedy, like, even if you find something that's just, it's not hitting you, I'm gonna be open and try it again. Like I said, I'll go see women comedians and hope the next one's funny.
Well, go and that's good, man, because I mean, that is a thing that and again, it's another thing that I say on my stand-up is, well, you're a good comedy audience, but when people that are easily offended come out to comedy shows, that's like having a peanut allergy and taking a tour of the Planters factory.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, your limitations.
Why would you do it?
Why would you do that to yourself? Especially when you can watch sanitized comedy on TV. That's all over the place. You can look up all this shit. You want to see clean comedy? It's fucking, there's no shortage of it if you want to just watch shit that's not offensive or anything.
Yeah, no, to me, bring it all.
yeah, and if you don't feel that way, then stay the fuck away from a stand-up comedy club, man.
Yeah, that's some of my favorite stand-up I've seen. I go to like random little clubs. I haven't in a couple of years because of COVID now, but random little clubs that I've never heard of, that it's just some stand-up night, a bunch of people I've never heard of and never will again. And they say the most off-the-wall shit, and I think it's fucking hysterical. There's always someone there who's upset about it. What are you doing there? And same thing you said.
Well, and the thing is, I can deal with it now with hecklers and assholes and shit. But when I lose it the most, I usually don't lose it on hecklers. Like, I don't really, because I'm a drunk and they're usually drunk too. So I'm like, I get it. You know what I mean? So I try to appease them. I'm like, listen, I've been drunk too, man, but I got this. You don't have to fucking yell out every single time. I try to appease them that way. If they keep yelling out and being mean, then I'll go really lose it. But usually I take a more peaceful, diplomatic approach. But when I really lose it, the couple of times that I've really lost it, it's because somebody will yell out, like I just remember one specific example where this guy, it was a bar show, and this guy's like, "You're not funny." And I don't care that you don't think I'm funny. And like, I barely think I'm funny myself. But what bothered me about it was that he was saying, "You're not funny," and I had already been on stage for 15 minutes, where everybody was enjoying the show. But this guy just felt so entitled that because I said something that he didn't think was funny, he had to be like, "You're not funny," because it's not like he was saying, "I don't think you're funny."
Do the shows police that shit at all, though?
Depends on the place.
Yeah.
If you're doing a bar show, no. If you do, because I do a lot of like what we call one-nighters, where it's just a bar that does comedy once a week. So if you're doing a bar show, usually not. They're not gonna police any of that. If you're doing a comedy club show, it depends on a comedy club. Some are really good.
If you're doing crowd work and you're getting a laugh off it, I'm sure they're gonna let it go. Right, but if the dude's just being disruptive and an asshole, I imagine they might stop that.
But that's also a double-edged sword, because I've been in shows. This doesn't really happen to me, but I was at a show once where there was a heckler in the audience, and my buddy was on stage, and he was just destroying her because he's really, really good with crowd work. So she kept mouthing off, and he kept going back at her, and the audience is fucking laughing and cracking up.
Yeah,
but. So I talked to him after the show. This is when I was very new into comedy. I probably hadn't been doing it for more than a couple of years. And I'm like, man, fucking just destroyed her. And he was mad. Like, he was not happy. And I'm like, what? And like, in my head, I was like, why are you so upset? You just killed it. And it's because he was like, I wanted to do my set.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do my set because this woman kept yelling and then the club wouldn't get her out of the room. Like he wanted the room to get her the fuck out of the room, to like kick her out.
Yeah, but I mean, like there should be like, you can do a hand signal or something. I would think that's previous setup. But to me, guys who are good at crowd work are still fucking hilarious. And
well, that's the
if
thing.
you're good at it, I'd rather watch your crowd work than your planned skit. Because
well, and I think
then I know it's off the cuff.
I'm the opposite. I like this. I like the sets.
I like both, but you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever seen a comedian who's really good at crowd work?
Yeah.
And if that's their thing, roll with
frozen?
it, right?
Oh yeah.
Did I freeze?
But here's the thing. I'll say this, man. It's like, I think that was the mentality that the comedy club had at the time. They were like, man, he's killing it. We're not going to stop this. You know, let's.
Everyone's loving it.
But he wasn't. Like he would have. And you're right. Sometimes you do have comedy clubs. They're like, okay, give me a sign. Like if you tip your hat, well, most people don't wear hats, but if you tip, do a hand gesture or some shit.
Scratch your ear or some shit.
So, but I'm assuming they didn't have that at this club. He was just expecting them to kick them out. But again, they let it go. Like, oh, look, he's destroying it. And that is true that, and he was, because he's a genuinely really great comic. His name is Matt Davis, and he's got videos online too where he just destroys people. But he didn't want to do that. Like he wanted to do his material. Now, from an audience perspective, as a comic, I fall under, I want to see the material, because unless it's a really, really good comic, a lot of the shit that crowd comics do is very from the vault. Like they're so good at it that it sounds like they just came up with that shit.
Yeah, but they've
off the top of their head. But no, but a lot of times it's like they've heard it all. So it does, like they'll usually go with like, what do you do for a living? And they'll have a funny answer for it. It doesn't even matter what the fuck you say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what it kills with audiences though, because they don't know that that is, and it killed me too when I didn't realize, like there's a lot of shit that, I mean, I think it's true for any kind of work or job that you do, is that once you're in it for a while, you kind of see all the tricks. It's like, you know, it's like being a magician, and then you're not as surprised when the fucking dove just flew out. It's like, oh yeah, I know what he did right there. So that's what I run into with people that do very generic crowd work. It's like they're killing the audience, but like I know what you're doing. Like I've seen comics do that before, but there are some that they're just genuinely off the top of their heads, just fucking beasts.
But at the same token, to your buddy, right? Like you were saying he's a funny guy. If I watched a guy and I'm there in the audience because I'm not a comedian, and he's doing crowd work and I'm just fucking dying, I'm gonna go look up his shit later. You know what I'm saying? Like, you made me laugh my ass off, and you weren't even using your shit. Your shit must be hilarious.
That's a great point, man. I think, and I think, you know, looking back on it, I think he was more just like, you know, upset about the whole situation.
I understand it.
But I agree with you. I agree with you that people that were at that show are now more likely to want to follow up on him.
I understand him being bullshit with it. Like, it makes sense. Listen, I'd be frustrated too. You just want to do your skit and all that. But to me, look at the bright side of it, right?
Yeah.
All those people are like, fuck, I want to see that guy again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. And that's why a lot of those on YouTube and stuff, a lot of the more popular videos are just comics going after the audience.
But I think it's a pretty good place to wrap it up. So thanks for being on the show. Where can everybody find you, your show? Where are you touring next? Actually, are you going to be up here anytime soon in New England?
No, I've actually never done New England.
Time to make a change.
Yeah, seriously. I would love to. I've been to
Boston's a massive comedy town, right?
Oh yeah. The thing about New England, at least road comedy wise, is that New England is very insular in that a lot of New England comics do New England and they don't get out. Like I'm talking just road comics, and they just mostly do the New England circuit. But then nobody else goes to New England because they do their own thing. Like Florida is a similar way to that. But
we're all assholes up here.
I would say you're in New York.
That's my people,
away, man.
I mean, I'd love to. I mean, it definitely, especially now that COVID's lifted and shit. So I would love to go out there. But now, as far as dates, I'm just doing local shit. I'd rather people check me out on social media. It's at twitter.com/ or at Carlos_Valencia. By the way, it's Carlos_Valencia because some asshole took Carlos Valencia in like 2009, and they have one tweet. They have one tweet that says something like, "I'm in the lab." And I don't know what the fuck happened at this lab, but he never tweeted again.
Fucking Carlos. He shouldn't have been in the lab. I can tell you that.
I'm trying. That's what I'm saying, dude. I was like, either somebody check on this guy at the lab or let me have at Carlos Valencia. Because this motherfucker's not doing shit with it. Hasn't done anything since 2009.
I wonder if that'll be a thing where it's like you haven't touched something for 15 years. It just gets closed.
There was a time there where Twitter was trying to shut down like inactive Twitters, but apparently there's like famous dead people Twitters that people don't want to fucking get shut down. So So they're trying to fucking, I don't know, figure out some sort of way. But I mean, this motherfucker, he blew up in the lab, dude, like 2009. It's not like he's got a history of hilarious tweets. That's his only tweet,
shit, man. We have a swear in our name. Everyone hates it. You can't. Facebook? Oh God. Yeah. Hell no. You can't have bastards. That's bad.
Exactly. So, I'm that long story short, I'm at Carlos_Valencia on Twitter, and then Carlos V Comedy is my website and my Instagram too.
Yeah, we'll throw it all up on the end of the video for you.
Go check him out, guys. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Grizz. I like talking to Carlos. He's a cool guy.
Good
not even remotely what I expected.
No.
To be honest, though, he's the first real comedian on a professional level that I've ever spoken to. So I didn't really have a lot to base that on.
I mean, I enjoyed him. I go into all these having no clue where we're going. I bring my little bit of knowledge that I have and just roll with it.
Sometimes it's painfully obvious, and sometimes it's genius.
But most times I seem like a complete dumbass.
So Carlos, though, he seems like he really knows what he's doing out in the comedy industry, which seems like a brutal, brutal place.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them have a checkered past, but I also just don't like we talked about in the episode. Right now, they're a little too censored, and they really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but
I mean, I think the world's too censored myself.
But when you consider like the concept of your first time going out onto a stage to tell jokes to a crowd of strangers, I think back to when we started this podcast, and I had no clue what I was doing, and neither did you. We had some awkward moments. I couldn't imagine doing that live in front of a crowd.
Yeah, especially if it was a big crowd, that'd be a little rough at times.
I'd throw up on stage.
Jerry's on stage, just shit himself.
That's exactly what happened. I'd tell a bad joke, it would bomb, and I'd throw up and shit myself right there.
Boo this, man.
But if you guys liked this episode, let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're not, well, I don't know, listen next week.
Thank you again for listening to Beautiful Bastards. New episodes every Monday. Remember to like and subscribe. Does it sound like I'm ordering a fucking pizza?
So you're telling me there's a chance